talked about the tourism industry with our amazing guest speakers. The second week, we jumped into hospitality in a very insightful talk. And last and third week, we had a very interactive experience when discussing events. If you missed any of them or want to listen to them again, sorry, you can find the three of them on our YouTube channel, The Group. This week, however, is the last week of this event. We are going to be discussing the student perspective with all of you and listening to our two guest speakers of today. Thank you both so much for being here. Our first speaker is Rhiannon Breeze Harris. Rhiannon is an ARU graduate with a degree in education. She has vast experience regarding education, training, and research. Within her experience, she has directly worked with the Invisible Grail to help narrow the gap between students, student unions, and universities, as well as organizing events and activities at higher education institutions. Currently, she works as an employment coach with Papaworth Trust, helping those who became unemployed due to the COVID-19 pandemic return to work. So thank you so much for being here with us, Rhiannon. Our second speaker is Cristina Ionita, who may look familiar to many of us, thanks to her very active and tireless work at ARU. Cristina's record inside ARU is very impressive. She was the president of the Latin American Society, as well as a representative for our faculty, the Faculty of Business and Law. She's won several awards, including the Students' Union Gold Award and Project of the Year for the Mon Festival of last semester. Recently, Cristina has graduated tourism management. Congratulations. And that supports her 6-year experience in the tourism industry. Currently, she is an editor at the startup Cambridge Learning Getaway, helping bring in the latest innovation to the world of academia. It's a pleasure as always, Cristina. Thank you so much. Kindly remind everyone to please mute yourselves during the talk, and please save your questions for the end when you will have an opportunity to ask them to both speakers. Without further ado, Rhiannon, please go ahead.
Thank you very much. What a lovely introduction. That was really lovely. Yeah, so I guess the reason for me being here is just to talk and maybe even answer some of your questions about getting into employment afterwards and maybe the skills that you need, since I'm looking at the labour market every single day. I'm aware of kind of the needs that employers are looking for and things like that. A little bit about me and my time at university. I finished my degree about a month after the COVID pandemic hit. So I had my uni experience, which I was really lucky to get, but dissertation time and all of that really crucial time of the year. I was in lockdown and everything, the same as you guys would have been. It did obviously scare me. I didn't know whether or not I would be able to secure a job, whether I wanted to continue on my path in my degree or branch out into some other things, because I've done a lot of training with higher education training providers and things like that. So it is quite a terrifying time when you're getting to the end, and Christine, you probably know as well, when you start to graduate, especially when things are getting delayed, you don't have that closure either, because we've only just graduated actually this year. I don't know if that's the same for you. So there's very much that, oh God, am I going to be secure? Do I have the skills? Have I done enough? Now there's even more pressure. Jobs are very far and few between at the moment. So being able to think, actually, I do have the ability to step into the world of work, which is probably what you guys learn a lot, is about making connections and making sure that you're setting yourself up while you're at uni to almost step straight into something. And sometimes people don't have the capacity to do that. So I work closely with people with additional needs and disabilities, where those opportunities are not easily presented to them, nor do they feel they have the confidence to seek them out. So we look at things like transferable skills, employability skills, utilising your full degree to maybe something outside of the sector that you might not have thought about, because not everyone's going to do their degree and go straight into the niche that they've been studying. It's very much common that you would go out and do something completely different, at least for a few years. It's about having the confidence to actually say, this is what I want right now, and this is what I'm going to get even if the opportunity isn't presented to you. So yeah, searching for those opportunities can be quite difficult. But I guess I'm here to answer any questions people have on maybe what the expectations are for themselves and their circumstances, what skills they might feel like they need, how COVID is still affecting the job market even now, even though things feel like they're returning to normal, but just not quite. And any fears that you might have that maybe I could put into perspective for you or anything like that. Yeah, just to fire away. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Sorry, the muting button was not working. Okay, thank you. Yes, I have imagined that it must have been like an incredibly stressful time. Even now that my team and I, for example, we're finishing this semester, and we still don't really know. Like, is it gone? Is it not gone? We see the numbers. What's happening? What's gonna happen? So indeed, it must have been incredibly scary, even, I would say, like not know what do I do from now on.
Yeah, definitely. The job security that you kind of get almost promised with going into a degree, going into university means you will get a career at the end of it. And unfortunately, people are now realizing that that's not the reality of it. It does take a lot more than that. And that's why in my degree of work, I'm always making sure that everyone has a realistic expectation of what to expect once they leave university and when they're trying to find jobs, especially if they've lost jobs. So I work with a lot of older people who have worked in their industry for 20 years and now find themselves redundant and don't know what to do. So yeah. Oh, Christina, do you have your hand up? Do you have a question? You're on mute.
Not enough meetings, apparently. I wanted to ask you because during my graduation ceremony, which was last week, I was reflecting on what would I have done differently if I knew the pandemic would happen. What would you tell yourself if you could have a conversation?
So the final year for me was going to be a lot more work placements and summer positions. And I had that in my mind in 2019 that I can give myself a bit of a rest and I can just focus on working like, you know, the normal student jobs that we all do and nothing actually directly linked to my career. And obviously that all went up in the air because there was nothing. Everyone was at home. So I probably would have said to myself that if you're thinking about taking that jump into something, don't set yourself a date or a goal that's so far ahead that you can't really see what's going to happen. You can't really predict. I could have done it in the summer of 2019 and that it would have been fine because I would have thought about it, had a bit of time to prep, done it all within the space of that year. And then I gave myself too long when I thought was being really prepared and organised, actually was leaving too much to chance. And in today's world, everything is changing just so rapidly. Every single day, there's something new to consider. So having that in the back of your mind and thinking, I want to do this. Okay, I've thought about it. I've got a little plan. I'm just going to go for it. It's probably the best thing that if I could go back and tell myself, I would do.
I don't know if you can tell us from your personal experience, how was it? How was that transition from, okay, I'm gonna graduate. I'm finishing my degree. I finished. How was the whole process and to your current job at the moment?
So I've actually done many things since graduating. I job hopped quite a lot, which is, I mean, some people might think that's not sensible because of how rocky everything was, but it's just kind of the direction that everything's taken me. So I graduated, I finished my degree in like July of 2020, stopped my student job, said goodbye to all my friends, everyone was back in lockdown, we stopped everything, and I was like, oh, I'm an adult now, I have to find a job and that's it, I've got to start my career. I will be honest, there's a lot of rejection. I was like, this is never going to happen for me. Like, I'm just going to be doing nothing for the rest of my life. How is this, especially now with a pandemic happening, how will this ever happen? And it just it took a lot of commitment and a lot of motivation, and I was like, I just got to keep at it. I eventually found a job in Cambridge Regional College working with people with special needs, which was a really nice breakthrough into seeing kind of if I wanted to work in further education rather than primary and secondary, which is where I specialised, and really loved it. It was like, yeah, this is great, this is where I want to be, but something which wasn't quite right about how they were adapting and moving forward with a lot of the changes that were happening. A lot of institutions find it really hard to catch up so quickly. So then I eventually found myself in a charity at Papworth Trust, helping people that have been out of employment for so long, and hands down, it's the best job I've ever done. Like, I love it so much every single day. So you just got to kind of keep trying and not fear saying, no, actually, I don't like this, even if you think it's a bit risky. Because my jump from Cambridge Regional College to Papworth Trust was quite a risky one, to leave somewhere that was, you know, stable, albeit I didn't enjoy it, but I could have just said, I'll stick it out. I actually put my feelings towards a job first. Sorry, my cat is. And said, actually, no, I'm going to take another leap and do what I want to do, and it's really paid off. I know everyone doesn't have that luxury, but if you can do it, then do, because there's no time to be miserable in what you're doing. It's what I've realised in this short space of time I've been in the working world. If that answers the question.
Yeah, Zach has a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thanks, Rhiannon. My question is sort of like around the fact that recently I actually see quite a lot of jobs available, like just coming out of nowhere, whether it's in retail, hospitality, tourism, even events as well. They just seem to be popping up out of nowhere. So obviously the pandemic had led to a lot of job losses, you know, across the country, across the world, but let's keep it to the country for now. And then all of a sudden they seem to be springing back up again. Can you sort of, like, seeing as you look at the market more or less every day, can you sort of shine some light on what sectors are sort of really coming back and what have opportunities available versus those that are still sort of lacking opportunities?
Yeah, so it isn't obviously a surprise. There was a huge recruitment freeze back at the start of the pandemic, and the putting everyone on furlough and things like that, and no one wanting to do anything with their budgets in their companies. But since things are starting to open again and the government have given a little bit of funding to certain industries, it's really helped boost them back up, and that they've been able to, you know, recruit again. But I think the biggest thing is that people are realizing their priorities since seeing their family be sick, you know, them being sick themselves, understanding that quality time is more important than maybe the job that they was doing before, their quality of life as well. So they're more likely to make that move, which means there's going to be more spaces popping up. The industries that we see the most is probably hospitality and retail. There's always going to be jobs in hospitality and retail. It's just, there's always space for it. And if a company can afford to hire, then they will. But of course, the quality of those jobs are lower. So they don't stay for very long, which means that you see them just popping up all the time. In like things like events planning and management and sort of like events coordination and stuff, they're coming back quite heavily now, because so many more places are being inundated with requests to do like weddings and venues and events in their venues and things, that actually the capacity that they're trying to fulfill to make up for all of their lost years means that they need so many more people on board to like help them with those things. And obviously, if you keep up to date with the news, things like delivery drivers, lorry drivers, all of that kind of stuff, which in my professional opinion is definitely a scare tactic for a lot of people, because those jobs always exist, they're always there, they always have been. It's just a way of making them almost seem like they're all of a sudden there and you have to get it right now. So that can kind of be a little bit of a fear mongering when it comes to the media and stuff. We find that a lot of people get in touch with us and are and are saying the job isn't going to be there next week, and we're like, yeah, it will be, because it might not be that particular one, but in that industry they're always going to exist. There's always more jobs than you realize. A fun fact is that actually 70% of jobs are not advertised on any job platform. They're always either hiring internally or got connections and will headhunt themselves. So actually the jobs that you see, you might not think there's that many or only particular industries, but that's because the hidden ones are hiring from within their company or already have people in mind to do it, which is why building those connections is one of the most important things that you can do, especially when you have the safety net of just being at uni and you can manage that time. Does that answer your question? I'm happy to elaborate a bit more on anything.
Yeah, no, it does. No, it does. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Speaking of, you mentioned the lorry drivers, and we have also in the news with the turkeys and and all this stuff happening. The scary of we're not going to have turkey for Christmas. Do you see, because they're using the terminology of employee shortage, like there's no workers. Do you find that to like actually be true only regarding lorry drivers and butchers and all these terms that we hear in the news so often, or do you think that there is a problem that because a lot of immigrants have left, there is actually a lot of worker shortage in other sectors as well?
Yeah, I think what I'd say is not so much there's a worker shortage, but there's a shortage of people wanting to do those jobs now, because they don't feel like they are either qualified to do it or that they want to, which is quite disappointing, because there are a lot of unemployed people in this country, and there's a lot of jobs that they could go into, and even if it was for a short term, at least they would have that sense of, you know, the career progression or anything, the security for that moment. But unfortunately, it's not the mindset that they're in currently. I deal with hundreds of unemployed people every year, and that, you know, the majority of them that are quite fussy, which I think you should be fussy, you should want to do a job, but it's when it comes to maybe the sake of your livelihood that sometimes things don't have to be forever. You know, you don't have to work as a delivery driver forever if that's not your ultimate aspiration, but showing that drive and that motivation is only going to help you in the long run applying for something else. Employment gaps in you know, on your CV and stuff, employers look at that heavily, like more than you would think. So if you could just fill those gaps up with something that you're learning something from, even if you don't think working as a delivery driver and then wanting to be, I don't know, working with children, there's any lap. There's so many transferable skills there that you wouldn't really realize until you look at both job descriptions together and think, oh yeah, like there is actually an overlap here, and you can lead on to do anything. So yeah, just being a bit more open-minded, I think, is probably good for people in this country at the moment.
I heard you mentioned skills. What would you think that are now the most looked after skills for like new graduates? Because we know the ones before. Has it changed? Are they the same ones? What do you think?
So they've not changed as dramatically as people might think. Probably the only thing is the digital skills that are needed to do most jobs has really risen over the past 2 years. There's so much more expectation on the digital intelligence that people have, which is finding a lot of people at fault, because where the area I work, which is more about accessibility, not many people have either the confidence or the academic knowledge to be able to access digital things. Like for example, us at university, we're thrown into it. We have to learn to adapt to it. We get given the tools and the resources to be able to learn, but often people that don't access it that way would never have that opportunity. And older generations as well don't have the confidence to just kind of give it a go. So there's definitely that side of things that you really need to hone in on when you're writing things like your CV and your cover letter and things like that. And just looking like really stripping down your experience and not thinking that nothing applies to what you want to go on to next. There will always be a reason to put your experience on your CV. There will always be a reason to use your volunteering, even if it's you've done litter picking at uni as like a clear up whatever, like that you still include that, because a lot of people don't feel like they have enough because they don't feel like what they've done is relevant enough. But it always will be showing that you're proactive and that you're doing what you love and that you're going out there and you're, you know, meeting new people and networking. It's always going to be positive to put on your CV and things like that. And just doing as much like professional development around your like general timetable if you can fit it in, and if you can, you know, not be stressed about it. Obviously prioritize your mental health because university is hard, but if you can do that, it's just always worth it.
That's very good advice, in my opinion.
Yeah, I do feel like sometimes I worked too much at uni. I probably could have taken a step back and been like, okay, let me have a breather. But if you can handle it, I think that it does make the difference. But then I don't want anyone to think that if they can't, it's going to really disadvantage them, because it's not. You have so many services and so many support networks, especially at uni, that you can utilize. So you'll never be, you know, never feel like you're not doing good enough. If you're trying your best, that's your best, and that's the best you can do. So
talking about uni, did you feel during when the start of the pandemic happened, when we were all sent home and we didn't know what was happening, was there a bit of a semester trial, let's call it, or like what's working, what's not working, online, not online, during the end of your degree, especially for those that graduated right on peak pandemic? Did you feel supported throughout? Did you have to reach out often? How was your experience regarding that?
So my experience within HEMS, which is where my faculty of education, did an incredible job adapting to virtual studying. It was really interactive, though I would say that we are a smaller cohort, so we kind of had that advantage of not having to juggle too much with the lecturers. And we were very much prioritized as, you know, we now need more support, we now need more one-on-one time, things like that. And the lecturers did work really hard for us, which was really, it was just amazing. They did such a good job. But I can imagine that other faculties where you have 100+ students in a classroom, that's going to be a little bit more difficult to handle. So I just hope that the same as my faculty, they really took feedback on board, because that was probably the biggest thing that they needed. They just need to listen to us. Christina will know from being like representation that you can't say the word feedback enough to the university. You just have to keep reminding them that we are the most important people. You know, as much as they'll argue back, we are. But yeah, it's just getting ourselves heard, and they really did hear our voices, so that was really positive.
It's very good to hear. It's reassuring to know. I know some faculties had a harder time than others. Like you said, size-wise,
Yeah.
It's not the same having 20 than 200 kids there, obviously. All right. Well, if anyone has any other questions, it is now. No. Okay. Well, if any of you have any other questions, I know Rhiannon has to be leaving us shortly. So thank you very much for being with us today. If you guys have any other questions for her at all, just pop them in the chat or send it to us through social media, and we'll make sure to send them forward to you, Rhiannon, so you can.
I'm happy to be, you know, happy for you guys to reach out to me, even if it's to look at your CV or anything like that. I look at them daily, so it's just my life, so it's fine. You can do that. I'm happy to help. Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you very much, Rhiannon. It was incredibly insightful, so thank you for being here. Our next speaker is Christina, so whenever you want, Christina, floor is yours.
Hi everyone. Thank you, Rhiannon, for coming on such a short notice, and it was lovely to see you. And I'm sure you're doing an amazing job, and hopefully we'll stay in touch and see what else can happen.
Absolutely, yeah. I will head off now though, so good luck with your time to speak. And it was great to speak to you all. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, Rhiannon.
Right. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about myself so people get to know me. So my name is Christina, and I started my degree in tourism management in 2018. Feels like a very long time ago. Just because of the pandemic, the years are a bit like mashed together. But I put down my notes trying to remember what happened when. So I started my degree being obviously excited to be studying in another language. English is my third language. Um, I was really excited because I've been dreaming about coming to university in the UK for 5 years because before it actually happened. So that was quite an achievement for myself. Moved to Cambridge by myself, didn't know anyone. I remember the first trimester was challenging. That's a mild word, but I'm gonna still use it. Challenging because um, I come from Romania, which is in Eastern Europe, and we have a quite competitive side, I'm gonna say. And obviously, coming to the West, we had to work in teams, which was something that it wasn't really encouraged in my country. So rather than being competitive, I had to learn to work with other people. I had to learn to understand other perspective and accept them. So that was interesting for me, and it really showed me that there are other ways to do the same thing, and it's not about being right or wrong. It's about how we work together to achieve the right outcome. And I had almost 1 year and a half of a pandemic free degree, which was great because there were so many events on campus. And it was just before the pandemic. We had the Global Week at the university, and we had the whole Helmer building full of people. There was music, there were groups of people, we had food. It was very lively, and it really made you feel like part of a community. That was around early March. And then obviously, because of my degree, I was meant to be traveling to Amsterdam for a field trip, and that got cancelled because of the pandemic. We were really sad because we've been looking forward to that, but we had to adapt. One thing about the tourism industry, it's usually the first one that gets hit when something global happens. Either if it's technology, if it's politics, we are usually the first ones to actually feel it. So when traveling started suffering, let's say, when people didn't want to travel anymore because they were scared, I started questioning if my degree is going to be relevant anymore. And I realized that we will be we will come back at some point. People love traveling. We've always traveled. Even in the early stages when we came as groups, we started moving from place to place. um, and we're not gonna stop anytime soon because many people are explorers. I like to see myself as an explorer, as someone curious about life and people. So I said, okay, what do I need to do in order to be able to do my job when things go back? And as Arnon said, it's really important to have transferable skills because until that point, I never had to. I saw that I have my degree, I have my experience as a travel agent, which I did before going to university in my own country. So I had to wait and I had to think, what am I good at? For example, I like writing, I like creative writing, I like politics. So I was wondering, what can I do? What skills are people gonna look for when things go back to normal? And then I realized that it's gonna take way longer than what I expected. I thought that in 3 months we'll go back to normal, everything will be short and sweet. It didn't go that way. So before the pandemic, my employer, I worked in a coffee shop for a small independent business in Cambridge, and my employer asked me to organize our winter festival, which I was really excited about. And that discussion took place around February. And obviously, when the pandemic hit in March, there was no festival to organize. And my job obviously had to close as well. And I had to go back to Romania for 7 months. I had to finish my second year in university online, and being home was quite stressful because after being an independent person for a year, coming back home was difficult because you are so used to everything that now you have to get used to things that you thought you knew before. Um, and then I came back to Cambridge in August last year. And because of the restrictions and everything, we had to change the way we serve people in the coffee shop. We had to use takeaway cups. We couldn't use cutlery anymore. So every week we had to make changes to how we worked. And for a person like myself, which likes certainty, it was really stressful. And I realized that it's not it's not just a job that you should be ready to adapt. It's just life in general, because I think that our generation will face a lot of uncertainty, and we need to be prepared to adapt from day to day rather than year to year. So I realized that I might not be strong, well, not adapted enough to go into the job hunting mode just 3 months before graduation. People get a bit nervous about jobs, or even 6 months before. And you start wondering, and you go on LinkedIn and you look what jobs are there, and you look there and they say 3 to 5 year experience, and then you realize you're in a pandemic, so you don't really have experience. And there is a certain level of frustration that you go through, because this is not what you signed up for. This is not how you thought your degree is gonna go. That's definitely the job you might have been waiting for to get when you graduate might not be available now. So it's just making, let's say, peace with what happens now, and maybe change your goals. Or if you really, really think that there's a way for your goal to still be accomplished, you just need to build the patience to build for it. And after I finished my degree, which was in May, I still had my student job, which was working in a cafe. And one thing that I really struggled was seeing a big number of people from my class and just from my year in general getting amazing graduate jobs. And it's not about me not being suitable or them having more opportunities, or it's just that things move differently for everyone. And I think that if we stop comparing ourselves to the person who did XYZ, I think we're going to be in a better place, because each one has a personal journey. And it's like comparing, I don't know, let's say jellyfish with avocado. They have nothing in common. Even if you did the same degree, you have different experience, you have different perspectives, you have different um, lives. And I think that there is a job for each one of us, a job that's going to make you feel that you make a contribution, that's going to pay you well, that's going to bring you that satisfaction that all your hard work is going to pay off eventually. And right now, I am doing an internship, as Antia said, with Cambridge Learning Gateway as an editor. I have a degree in tourism management. It has nothing to do with editing or publishing, or let's say like social media, which is what I'm currently doing right now. But the reason why I was offered this internship was because I organized the Money Festival, and they wanted someone who had the resilience and who could organize events. And from organizing events, I ended up writing newsletters. And we're still waiting to do events in December. But as Arnan said, it's really important to to put yourself out there and to realize that every small thing that you do actually counts, because people see it. Even if they don't speak to you directly about it, people see it, people notice. And if there's a conversation that comes up and your name might be spoken in rooms you have no idea about, it's important for you to keep going, even if like no one is cheering for you, because you're gonna get to the point where you're gonna look at your work and you're gonna be able to choose the skills that make you different, and an employer will see that. If you want to start your own business, every small experience that you have along your degree and outside of it will contribute to your success, because even in a job, you bring your entire personality with you. It's not that I bring 3 years of tourism management and I bring 3 languages. No, you bring yourself to the job. And I don't think that's going to change even after we go back, because people are going to be looking at what have you done? How have you handled the pandemic? And it was stressful. And it was harder for other people because of their responsibilities. But if you can leverage the pandemic and look at it as, okay, this was my time, this is my time to realize what I want and how I want to achieve it. Anyone has any questions? Because I feel that I really want this to be a conversation rather than me speaking, because I've been speaking way too much, and people who know me know that I love to speak and I need someone to stop me.
No, I think you're fine. I find your experience very interesting. I was just wondering, because when it all went mayhem, we were gonna go to Amsterdam together. That didn't happen with Pamela. So I was wondering, because as the business law faculty representative, like, did you have a lot of us coming to you in panic, like looking for guidance regarding what's going to happen now? Are we doing fully online? Do we have a graduation? What were the biggest worries that the students had?
Right. So the elections for the student union representations were in the same month, in March, when the pandemic hit. And I found the news on the 20th of March, which was my first day back in Romania. And so I found that from July onwards, I'm going to be dealing with students in a pandemic, which was not really what I signed up for when I decided to run for the elections. But I said, okay, I'm going to be worried. They're going to be worried. If there's any chance that I can make them worry less, I want to take it. Because one of the reasons why I decided to be faculty rep was because I felt that the university can do more for students. I felt that we need to improve our communication, because something was missing, something was not done right. And when I came back in July and I started my training, one of the biggest worries that students had was that there isn't going to be enough value for their money, which for me, it was a fair question, because many of them had to move out of their country to come and visit and study here. And some of them had timetable issues, which was, again, it was a faculty problem. And one of the hardest things was feeling that you don't really have the power to change things, because unfortunately, at least in our faculty, there is a very long communication channel. So students speak with reps. Reps brought it to the meeting. In the meeting, there is the head of school. The head of school needs to talk to that person. That person needs to talk to the other person. And it takes a lot of time until things actually gets done. And I think this is a problem that many universities face. It's not just the IU. I think there is an overall struggle that universities go through, but I do believe that there must be a way for us to cut that channel shorter, because I had students who had a problem that was solved 2 weeks before their trimester ended, and they came to me and they said, well, it's not helpful anymore. And obviously you question if you made the right choice to come to this university, because you don't feel supported enough, you don't feel that you matter to the university. And what I found is that higher educations don't how should I say it? They work as independent bodies, but they still need to follow what other universities are doing, because being a pioneer, it's good, but when you do good things, not when you are wondering what works and what doesn't in a pandemic. So I heard universities doing online courses all the way. I heard universities who are still doing 2 hours per week on campus, and I don't believe that there was the right way to do things. And no matter what the university was doing, there were still going to be people who were displeased with it, just because no one expected this to happen, and everyone just had to adapt their needs and expectations, and that's not really something that you want to do, especially when you invest so much time and money and energy in your degree.
Indeed, it's been, regarding working with ARU, it's been a lot of, I think it was just a lot of panic inside students and inside the university itself. I think it was a bit of chaos. We were asking questions, they didn't have the answers. We got angry because they didn't have the answers. They were trying to find the answers. We got tired of waiting. I think it was a lot of just running in circles and trying. I think that's what everyone was trying to do best. So I was wondering as well, no? Who was it? I was wondering as well if when you managed to, like you said, you mentioned that you finished in May. How did you find it hard to like transition into actively looking for a job? I know there was a lot of people that were struggling with mental health issues due to the pandemic. The NHS was saying we're overwhelmed, we're sorry. There was a lot of people reaching out for uni for support regarding all of this. How, by your experience as a student representative, did you find it hard for students that just finished to like actually find a job that wasn't like what we all know, like we were waiting, we were working in stores, we were answering phones? Like, do you have an insight on that?
So I finished in May, and I remember uploading my last assignment, and I just felt relieved and scared at the same time. It's a very weird feeling, because you wanted so much to get it done, but then the thing about university is that it gives you a very straightforward plan. You need to do A, B, C, D. Once you finish with D, you're on your own. You have to figure it out. And that's kind of like a big shift for someone that has been told what to do for the past 3 years. And I was lucky that I was able to keep my job in the cafe shop. But after my job, obviously, I went home and spent hours on LinkedIn looking for things that I wanted to do, because I didn't want to leave Cambridge. But at the same time, I felt that everyone else was leaving and I was left behind. Everyone was moving to different countries, and I was wondering, okay, am I going to be by myself here? So it's a big transition, because people come, people go, and you just feel that the whole world is shifting around you, and you're just trying to stay grounded, and you're wondering, what am I supposed to do now? One thing that I would advise everyone is to take one day at a time, because if you say to yourself, it's been 2 weeks, I haven't heard from that company, I could have done a better cover letter for that interview. It's always it's just to give yourself the credit that you've worked really hard for your degree, and this is not your usual after uni experience. We are still in a pandemic. People are still getting sick. People are still worried about all sorts of things. Salaries are changing. The skills are changing as well. The rules are changing as well because of Brexit. People see immigrants leaving, as you said, and then we have a shortage in workers. So there are two things happening at the same time. And I just think that taking one day at a time and realizing that you've done a great job and you're the only person who know how much you've worked. And I think it's important to see your worth and try to show it to other people, because as I mentioned earlier, people notice what you're doing, but until you sit down and have a conversation with them for you to tell them the story about that volunteer work that you've done, they're not really understanding or like grasping what that experience meant for you or how it changed you. So my advice is say how much work you've put into your degree, and tell yourself that people are gonna see it. It might not be happening in 2 weeks, it might not be happening in 6 months. I'm almost 6 months down after my degree, and I'm still trying to figure out what I want to do. I'm still trying to figure out where I want to be, because your views change as well after you finish your degree. You might realize that I've done this, but this is not what I want to do anymore. And you shouldn't feel sorry or you shouldn't regret your degree, because I think your experience is more important than the paper itself.
Indeed, I completely agree with you. I think it's important to just do as much as you can, but as much as you can mentally. Like don't try to like don't suffer through it. It's okay. Just take it one day at a time, like you said. Zach has a question. What can we do as current students to step up and take responsibility and capitalize on our remaining time at university?
Right. What I would say is go to the events organized. I cannot highlight this enough. It's this one particular event changed my entire life, I'm gonna say, because the internship that I got now was through Professor Aaron Barrell, who was a guest speaker at an event back in 2020 organized by the Entrepreneurship Society. I wasn't a member of the Entrepreneurship Society, but I had a friend who was, and she dragged me along to this event that I didn't even want to go. And I met him and we started chatting. And it just happened that we got in touch the following week, and then we started meeting for coffees and discussing several projects. And 1 year and a half later, he offered me this internship. So I truly encourage, go to these events, because you never know who you're gonna meet. You never know who's gonna see you and want to work with you. And when you go there, just think, as I'm in this position to meet people, what can I show? What conversations should I be speaking about in order to get people's attention? Because it was really random how so he was telling us to the group that he was working in developing countries to encourage an entrepreneurship mindset. He was telling us that he worked in Brazil, he worked in Latvia, he worked in Bulgaria. And I made a joke out loud saying, "Oh, but do you think you would be capable enough to do it in Romania, in my country, because my country lacks this entrepreneurship mindset?" And he told me, "Let's meet for a coffee and see if we can change that." And from that conversation, everything changed for me. So I truly encourage you, make a business card for you, even if it's the most simple design that you can find. Make one to make it easier for you to get in contact with people that you connect with. Because on that business card, if you have your email, or if the person gives you a business card, keep it, put it in your pocket, in your phone case, anywhere, but keep it there. And in case you get a project that you want to work on and you don't know who to reach to, you're going to find that business card and you're going to be like, okay, maybe this person is going to help me. So truly build yourself a network that can bring you benefits.
Zach mentioned that. That's amazing, and I have to agree. That is incredible. I would not have expected that. I believe Andy had a question as well.
Hello. So my question was related with the pandemic, especially for us, like as students. So some of us, we was lucky to keep our job, like you say, Christina, before. But in this side, on the other side, so do you think that a student had enough help during the pandemic from the institution, let's say university or government or any other kind of institution?
Right. I think that's a tricky question, because I think it comes down to the kind of person you are and the kind of environment you grew up in. From my expectations, there would have been more support from the university and from the government that should have been offered to us. But at the same time, if you look from their perspective, they have 20-year-old something who are gonna graduate and they are gonna be functional citizens and employees, that they need to understand how real life works, and they need to understand that sometimes you're just left by yourself and you need to figure it out. And that's not something easy to accept, because at the same time, when you are paying for your degree and you kind of like expect to receive some kind of support, but at the same time, the pandemic came with a life lesson that I think it showed each one of us that we need to build more resilience. And I think self-sufficiency was the word that was going around a lot. But I do believe that things could have been handled better for students, because I understand everyone was overwhelmed, but when you put your future in the hands of a university, you should expect that university to look after you. No matter what happens, they need to find a way to make it work for you.
Indeed, I think I have to agree, especially for those students that start studying later and they need loans and they need accommodation, and there's like, where's your family support? Some people don't have that. Some people can't have that. So I think it is very important, especially during these times, for universities to actually step forward and be like, while you're here, you are ours. You have to be supported, definitely. So thank you very much, Chris. It is very reassuring to hear your experience as such a dedicated student during the pandemic. Congratulations again on your graduation. Now, if anyone else has any other questions, please pop them in the chat or send it to us through our social media. Again, of course, we will forward them to you, make sure you get an answer. Also, we have a survey on the chat. If everyone could please take 2 minutes to just fill that in, it really helps us out with some feedback. That has been it. This is the end of the Awareness Festival. Thank you, everyone, for being with us throughout October. If you have, of course, again, any other questions, just send it forward to us. Thank you again, of course, to both Rhiannon, who had to leave early, and Christina for giving us their time. I'm sure you found it as helpful as we all did. Yep, that is it. Just another reminder to please fill out the survey form. And thank you all very much.
Thank you, Christina.
Thank you, Christina.
It was very lovely to see all of you.
Thank you. It was very lovely to see you too. We'll keep in touch.
Bye.
Bye.